Every year when that second Monday in October rolls around, it feels like the whole country gets into the same conversation. A pretty heated one, actually. It's this one single day on the calendar, but it tells two totally different, totally conflicting stories. So today, we're going to unpack all of it, the history, the controversy, and what it all means.
Really, it all comes down to this one big question, doesn't it? Is this day an American tradition, or is it a painful reminder? Because for some people, it's all about celebrating Italian-American heritage, a huge moment in history. But for others, well, it's a day that brings up the pain of colonization, of violence, of incredible loss. So how on earth did one day get so complicated? How did it come to mean two completely opposite things?
Okay, to really get this, we have to go way back. And I'm willing to bet the reason Columbus Day even exists is not what you think it is. It's not just about discovery. It's actually a story about a desperate fight for dignity and a direct response to some pretty brutal violence.
Yeah, this holiday didn't just pop up out of nowhere. I mean, look at this timeline. It took almost 200 years to become what it is today. It kicked off with a small celebration in New York way back in 1792. But the real push for it to become a national thing, well, that didn't happen for another 100 years. And the reason why? It's specific, and honestly, it's pretty tragic.
And this is the crucial piece of the puzzle. In 1891, a mob in New Orleans lynched 11 Italian immigrants. It was the largest mass lynching in American history. So when President Harrison called for a national observance of Columbus Day the very next year, it wasn't just a random celebration. No, it was a direct diplomatic move. It was an attempt to smooth things over with Italy, and just as important, it was meant to be a symbol of pride for Italian Americans who were facing just awful discrimination at the time.
In this quote from the National Italian-American Foundation, it just hits the nail on the head. You see, when Columbus Day became a federal holiday, it was a huge deal. For millions of Italian Americans and Catholics who were being treated like outsiders, celebrating an Italian explorer was a way of saying, hey, we belong here. We are part of this country's story. It became this incredibly powerful symbol of dignity and self-worth.
But of course, that's not the whole story. As we move through the 20th century, a completely different narrative started to gain ground. People began to seriously question that heroic version of Columbus and really confront the devastating legacy his arrival left behind.
95%. Just let that number sink in for a second. We're talking about an estimated 95% drop in the population of native peoples in the Americas within 130 years of Columbus's arrival. It's a staggering number that represents a true catastrophe. And it wasn't just from violence or being forced off their land. It was also from diseases brought by Europeans that their bodies had no way to fight.
And this right here just lays it all out. It's like looking at two completely different realities. On one side, you have President Harrison in 1892 calling Columbus a pioneer of progress and enlightenment. And on the other side, you have the modern historical view that he was responsible for enslavement, mutilation, and mass genocide. How can both of these things be about the same person? It's totally jarring.
And this isn't just a fringe argument anymore. It's gone all the way to the top. This quote from President Biden is from a Columbus Day proclamation. Think about that. The official White House statement for the holiday now openly talks about the wave of devastation that Western exploration brought to Native Americans. That is a massive shift in how we talk about this, officially.
So with this new understanding of history taking hold, it sparked a really powerful movement. And what's interesting is, it wasn't just about tearing down the old holiday. It was about building something new, a day to recognize and celebrate the people who were here long before Columbus, the indigenous peoples of the Americas.
And just like Columbus Day itself, this new holiday didn't just appear overnight. It started as an idea on the world stage way back in 1977 at a UN conference. Then it started to catch on here in the States. South Dakota was the very first state to make the switch in 1989. And then a few years later, Berkeley, California became the first city to officially adopt Indigenous Peoples Day, a real grassroots effort.
And then in 2021, that grassroots movement hit the very top. President Biden became the first U.S. president to ever issue a formal proclamation for Indigenous Peoples Day. I mean, that's a huge milestone. It took decades, but it brought national recognition to a day that's all about honoring America's very first people.
Okay, so after all that history, all that push and pull, where does that leave us today? Well, the truth is, this whole thing is far from settled. As a country, we are still very much divided.
This debate is happening right now in state governments and city halls all across America.
Just take a look at this chart. It really shows you what a patchwork this has become. There's no single American way to do this. You've got states like New York that are all in on Columbus Day. Then you've got states like Maine that have completely replaced it with Indigenous Peoples Day. And then there's a whole bunch in the middle doing both or something else entirely, or just not recognizing it at all. It's all over the map.
And this quote from President Trump's proclamation really captures one side of the modern political divide. The argument here is that Columbus is a foundational figure of Western civilization, and his legacy of courage and perseverance needs to be defended, reclaimed even, from what supporters see as an attempt to rewrite history.
And then, here's the other side of that coin. This quote from President Biden's proclamation shifts the focus entirely. The point here isn't about the explorers. It's about acknowledging the federal policies that tried to destroy native cultures for generations. And even more than that, it's about celebrating the incredible resilience and strength of Indigenous peoples who survived it all.
Which brings us right back to the central problem, doesn't it? We have two incredibly powerful, deeply personal, and totally opposite histories all crammed into one day on the calendar. So what do we do? Is there any path forward here?
Well, some groups, like the National Italian-American Foundation, argue that there is. Their take is, hey, this doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. They believe you can have both. That repealing one holiday just to replace it with another is its own kind of cultural insensitivity. They're pushing for a world where both holidays can coexist, where you can honor both histories without one canceling out the other.
But that really leaves us with the big unanswered question, right? Can a single day truly hold two histories that are so deeply in conflict? Is it actually possible for them to coexist peacefully? Or does celebrating one story, by its very nature, diminish or even insult the other? There's no easy answer, and as towns and states all across the country keep wrestling with this, the story of the second Monday in October is, well, it's still being written.